Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Discover Bilocation to Experience the Multidimensional Nature of Your Soul. My name is Stephen Dyna. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and I'm really delighted to be with you here, getting to explore the further dimensions of our human nature with some really prominent researchers and explorers at that frontier. We're going to be looking at the sort of the next level of the near-death experience, shared-death experience, bilocation, and how does that impact us in our everyday lives. And we're going to do so with Scott M. Taylor, who's the president of this Expanded Awareness Institute, and his close collaborator, Charlene Nicely, who has a doctorate. So they bring together a deep academic understanding, a practical research understanding, and a transformational teacher. How does this impact our lives to really explore these deeper dimensions of consciousness to disclose with near-death experiences, shared-death experiences? We're going to explore a lot of really cool territory. So with that said, Scott, welcome to today's program.
Thank you, Stephen. We are really glad to see you again, and thank you for the invitation to be here tonight.
Great. And it's Charlene, also great to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here tonight.
Great. Well, it's great to have you both here. And I want to let everyone know we're going to have a brand new program. We're going to go further into multidimensional realms. It's called Journey to Multidimensional Realms with Bilocation. It's really going to turn this into an ongoing practice in your life. So more to come on that. We'll share more at the end of the hour. So I want to begin. I know we're going to kind of tilt the first part of this hour more towards Scott and kind of painting the broad brushstrokes, and Charlene a little bit more towards the how and the implementation of this in practices. So Scott, why don't you kick us off a little bit with first painting the picture of why you got involved in the whole shared death experience and help pioneer that realm to begin with, and why it's relevant to what we're going to be talking about today.
Thank you, Stephen. So that's really a question about what's my story. And it begins in 1981, and I'm in love with a woman. Her name is Mary Frances. And Mary Frances and her son Nolan had been driving home from a beautiful day sailing in southern Minnesota, and they were involved in this horrific car accident. Mary Fran was killed outright, and Nolan had this mortal head wound, and it took him 6 days to make his transition. That becomes important because it allowed for the family to gather at the Mayo Clinic and to be there, support him, and be around during his vigil. And so I was bedside when Nolan's heart finally flatlined that morning of the 6th day. And when he flatlined, what I experienced was Mary Fran coming across the veil and scooping her son up out of his physical body. And they had this exquisite reunion. It surprised me because I was able to feel what it is that was going on between the two of them. Then what surprised me even more was then Mary Fran and Nolan turned to me, came over, embraced me, and the three of us went into the light. And it was a profound experience. It was like being immersed in the love and the connection of the universe. I was one with all things, but that really didn't matter because I was there in the light with the two of them. And the three of us had a chance to affirm our love and affection. And then we had a chance to say our goodbye. And at some point, that being together was finished, and they turned and went into the light, and I came back into my physical body. Now, if that wasn't surprising enough, what had happened to me was that I was with them in the light, and I was in the room with all of the other grieving relatives. I was with them consciously 100%, and I was in the room 100%. And that winds up being important later because it's the origin of our term bilocation, about how you can be in both places at once. And then we have to flash forward about 15 years, and I'm doing my doctoral research on near-death experiences. And as it turns out, Mary Fran's sister had had a near-death experience. And when she told me her story, this is what she said. Now, I have to remember, she told it to me first. I didn't cue her on this, but what she said to me was, Scott, I remember that scene very explicitly because I was bedside and you were on the other side of the room. And when Mary Fran and Nolan, or when Nolan flatlined, what I experienced was Mary Fran coming over, embracing Nolan, lifting him up out of his physical body. The two of them embraced, and then at some point they embraced me, meaning the sister, and then the three of us went to the light. And there we had a chance to affirm our love and affection, and we had a chance to say our goodbyes. And they went further into the light, and I came back to my physical body. So, Stephen, it was a case of absolute confirmation. And if I had any doubts whatsoever that what I had experienced some years earlier was true, that all evaporated in just a second. Just in that moment, everything was validated for me. And also, as it turns out, for the sister, that she could be at peace with this really rather extraordinary experience. And so that we now know is called a shared death experience, where you accompany somebody into the light and experience what they experience. That started me on my path because I had to know more about it.
Well, it's an incredibly compelling story. And before we go to Charlene and get her story, I want to just ask you, so what is it about the being in proximity or emotionally or physically proximate to a dying person that allows this portal to open to a different domain of consciousness?
Thank you for asking that question, because we actually know the answer to it. And the answer is that there needs to be a heart connection between the two individuals. In this case, it would have been Mary Fran and Nolan and me. So there's a heart connection. And second is that the person needs to be open and receptive. So that's me. I happened to be just sitting on the windowsill watching the heart monitor. So there wasn't much going on. I was just holding vigil. And that means that, I wasn't actively grieving or driving a car or talking to somebody. I was open and receptive. And the third and really critical component is that the two of them invited me into that world. It's much more difficult for me to increase my vibratory rate to exactly theirs so that I can participate with that transition into the light at that moment. But they invited me, and then they brought me along into the light. And that's what I see are the key components for why it happened to me and to the sister and not the other people in the room.
So it's almost like that heart connection creates a bond that kind of anchors you, almost like traveling as a group into different frequencies of dimensions of consciousness. It's really fascinating. And
That's exactly right.
And it kind of builds on what we've heard about near-death experiences. So do you really feel like this is a portal that anybody can make use of or access?
Yes. And it's one of those portals that once we know about it, we can, engineer a way to enter it and be in that space and hold that space for long enough so that we can actually spend time with our loved ones on the other side, or just, explore that spiritual realm. Anybody can do this work, but it's really helpful to have a guide. I will admit that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mary Fran and Nolan.
Yes, thank you to them. So Charlene, let's go to you and hear a bit about your story, because I understand you had a different pathway into this work, and that it can be quite relevant for those who sort of hear these big, starry kind of near-death experiences and haven't necessarily had them themselves.
Yes, because I have not had a near-death experience. I did not have a shared death experience such as you did with Mary Fran and Nolan, but I have had spiritually transformative experiences which is kind of the term that's commonly used now, that says my life is different because I have made connections with the spiritual realms. For me, it's been a soul's journey of incremental steps. PMH Atwater says that in her research, she feels that the thing that makes it spiritually transformative is when you touch the light. Now, for me, I translate that as when I touch what I know is beyond my physical, ordinary self. I've been lucky enough to do that several times. The first time I realized I was not in my physical body. I had a accidental out of the body experience, if you will. I was meditating and realized I was sitting at the desk doing some things, and it was like, oh, wait a minute, I'm over there listening to headphones. I need to get back to the exercise. It's like, good student, instead of going, oh my God, I'm out of body, let me go do something interesting, I went back over to listen to the headphones. But it was such an amazing confirmation of what I believed to be true to what I now know without a doubt is true, that I am indeed more than just a physical body. I have a spirit that can exist separate from the physical world. Also, I've had connections with many helpers. I was being shown some useful information about how we travel in the non-physical realms. And as I went to say thank you and goodbye, I just reached out to give this energy being a hug, and our energies merged, which was an incredible heart experience, if you will. It was that heart connection, once again, of just feeling so blended with that other person. I lost connection with Charlene nicely and was totally this energy being blended with another energy being in a oneness that is really difficult to describe, but incredible to remember. I had another experience where I had been spending time disconnecting from my ego identity, my personhood. And in doing that, got closer and closer to my core essence, not having a lot of thoughts, but being that space between thought, and connected with source energy. What I believe NDEers describe as the black light of incredible, full nurturing, all potential. And again, something that's very difficult to express. But not all of my experiences have been in these deep metaphysical, mystical places. I was doing some ancestral healing, doing just some kinesiology and intentional, yes, I agree to release these things. And as I did the last session of releasing, there was the smell of roses and a sense of my grandmother being present. But what was so remarkable to me, though that was very healing and emotionally very satisfying, the other people at the table who were participating in the exercise to some extent began to smell roses as well. And the smell of roses surrounded me for like an hour. I know we have a connection with the non-physical world, with the spirit realms, with the lights and the other connections that are described by near-death experiencers. I know that we can each connect with these realms, with these helpers. And I have been fortunate enough to experience some of the after effects, the seeing the divine love in each person, the spark of source, which has helped me be more loving, more compassionate, and a whole lot less judgmental than I was before. And to be able to be bilocating throughout life, not just in the big mystical moments, but in the day-to-day reminders of, that person who just cut me off in traffic, frustration, but they're having their life journey. So it has made a tremendous difference for me. And I know that others can also have the same experience step by step.
Well, thank you for that overview of why it's important for all of us, regardless of whether we've had a near-death experience like Scott has had. But let's go back to Scott. And so I want to ask some questions. So there's this disclosure of a whole multi-dimensional reality through this phenomenon of shared death and then bilocation, and has a lot of implications for who we are, how we live our lives here. And I know you've done a lot of research on that. So why don't we spend some time now painting the picture, what you've come to understand and learn about multidimensionality, like what does it actually mean in practice? And what are the implications for how we live our lives?
So this is so wonderful because, those of us that spend a little time in this have this sense that we are more than just this physical stuff that we carry around with us here in this universe. And we have this sense either because we know it or we anticipate that there is something more. There is something more. So what happened for me was after Mary Fran and Nolan had made their transition, I was consumed with curiosity. I really wanted to go back and be with them again in the light. And so I tried everything. I mean, I went to all these sacred sites around the world and, Machu Picchu and the pyramids and Stonehenge. And I got great vacations, but not much else. Oh dear. And then I got a divinity degree and I worked on my doctoral degree, and that was wonderful. I got lots of head stuff, but I didn't get the experience. So I started trying meditations. I tried TM and Zen and did a whole bunch of stuff around shamanism. And it wasn't until I discovered meditations using binaural beats that I was able then to reconnect with Mary Fran and Nolan in the light. And it's there that they started to show me that we are more than our physical selves, that we are more than this stuff that we carry around and our 5 physical senses. There is much and much, so much more. So what they told me and what I began to experience as I communed with them was that we're in this world of duality. And duality is run by the words either or, Stephen, it's you, or it's me, or it's Charlene, like we're separate. But in the world of the non-physical, the spiritual realm, it's run by the words both and, meaning I am me, and we are all part of this human consciousness, this collective that we are each a part of. And not only that we're connected, we're also connected to everything in this universe. And that we have a tangible connection to this loving consciousness that is our universe. So the way I like to think about it is that, here I am as this physical being, and then we have these different vibratory rates that we are connected to all the time. We are one with we exist on all these levels at once. And so knowing that, we can then focus in on any of these levels that we choose to. Say we want to talk with our dead relatives, like I was talking with Mary Fran and Nolan. So that's like about here somewhere. Then you can be able to establish relationships with guides, with spiritual beings, with our dead relatives. There's just so much that is available to us that we can learn to open up and become aware that we call them vibratory windows. These vibratory windows exist, and then learn what each one of those windows is capable of.
So it sounds like it's that we may not be aware of it all the time, but we actually exist in each of these vibratory windows. And so we're trying to do is find the part of us that is already residing there in order to connect. Is that accurate?
You got it. Exactly right. So yes, we exist on all these levels at once, but when we came down in here into the physical world, we agreed that we would have these 5 primary senses and that they would focus our attention, because let's face it, it's hard to live here in the physical world. And so we have been trained to pay attention to those vibratory rates, those, of seeing and hearing and touch. But we have all these other ones. And what we can do is learn to focus in on those other vibratory rates that are a natural part of us. It's our birthright, because that's what we're made of. We're made up of this loving consciousness that is the universe.
So when you start to open these windows of potential, these frequency bands, if you will, how do you establish who you can communicate with and how you can communicate at each level?
That's a great question. Usually it's all about intent. So if you said to me, or I said to myself, okay, what I want to do is have a conversation with Mary Fran, and I can intend for that to happen. And there are certain vibratory frequencies that just make that easier. And, so we learn to raise up our vibratory levels so that we're on the same, and then communication happens, and it's easy to do. And the lovely thing is, once you've done it, you just have to remember what it feels like. So you can do it over and over and over again. And then once you learn that you can talk to, a beloved person in your life, then you go, well, how about Grandpa Brett, or, Aunt Jean, or how about, I had a really interesting conversation with Paul once, Paul from the Bible, who wrote all those books. He and I had a little tussle, but I never known him. But we had a really interesting conversation. And then there's all those beings out there who have never been human. Angels, for instance, they exist at a frequency level that supports us. And we can do what Charlene was just talking about. We can merge with their energy. And that is a truly extraordinary experience.
So how do you know that these are real bilocation experiences where we're actually communicating with Paul from the Bible as an example, versus our own projection and our own imagination, which might come up for a lot of people in terms of concern that we're just making it all up, if you will?
Well, yeah. And, maybe we'll delay the talk of where does imagination come from? Because I think it comes from the other side. And so it's one of those superpowers that we all have. But your question is really fair. And so if we're saying, I'm getting some information that I should turn left, or I should talk to this person, or I should read this book, test it, and test it again, and then test it one more time. So this is information that is important to us, and it will come in a way that after a while, you'll begin to recognize that it has a certain quality to it. So when it comes across and says, hi, this is Nolan, and I'd like to tell you what's going on in my life right now, I absolutely trust it, because there's an energetic signature that is just Nolan. And then it's just my Grandpa Brett. And it's, the people that I love. I remember what that energetic quality is to them. And then for the folks who I've never met before, you can test the knowledge that they're giving you, and be able to say, oh, I could not have made that up, because that didn't come from any database that I have.
Mm-hmm.
So
So you're
For
kind of
instance,
looking, so you're kind of looking for information that's otherwise inexplicable from your individual self.
yes, exactly. So you might start out a conversation using your imagination. This is what I desire. This is what I think this person or this angel should look like, whatever. And then very quickly, what happens is that it takes on a life of its own, and the two of you are in communication using concepts and words that you never would have created on your own. So it takes on a life of its own. And that's how you know that you're on your way to a really, truly meaningful exchange.
Hmm. And maybe can you share a little bit about how you can then validate sort of with signals? I know you have some like signals of yes and no, and how you can start to really create those sort of clear yeses and nos in terms of guidance system.
And we're actually going to do a quick little exercise about that in a little bit. But the overview of that is that you program yourself and you can say, okay, this is what yes feels like. This is what no feels like. This is what maybe feels like. And you know, if any of you have done pendulum work, it's not dissimilar from that. And you know, we find that this learning takes place best using binaural beats, but you don't have to. And it's it's about creating a language between you and your guidance so that you recognize it as being from guidance, and it's giving you predetermined signals that only you would know.
Hmm. Truly fascinating. Well, I wonder if you can then link this now to the work with binaural beats and how you've over time helped the two of you particularly collaborating, turning this into a practice to make it even more real and bilocation, multidimensionality, like a real tangible reality.
Yeah, because both Charlene and I have been working with teaching others about how to meditate using binaural beats for 35 years plus. I'm not going to say the whole number, but we've been doing it a long time. And here's what I know about binaural beats. Um, it's a really interesting technology. Brief overview. It's where you put a tone into one ear and a slightly different tone into the other ear. So say 100 and 104 hertz. And if you're wearing headphones, the brain tries to equalize those two tones because that's what it normally does in echolocation, trying to figure out where you are in space. It can't because they're inherently different. And as a result, the brain then starts to vibrate at the difference between the two. And Stephen, if I was putting a pair of headphones on you and I played those two tones, you would leave us. You would be deep and fast asleep because the difference between 100 and 104 hertz, that's deep sleep. And what we know about binaural beats is that you can combine them. So you can take your body and say, all right, I'm going to let this go and relax and move it kind of out of the way. And then I'm going to have the frequency for, um, bright, awake, and clear. So you put your body asleep and then your mind is operating in a clear state. That is the jumping off point that we use to go explore, because that combination of tones, a 4 and say a 12, those tones are a powerful vibratory window for exploring the non-physical universe, the spiritual realms. And then we start to talk about, all right, we're going to raise up your vibratory level to that state of mind awakened and the body deeply relaxed. And now what's our intent? And so that's where guidance comes in.
Charlene, let's go to you and talk a little bit more about the how and how the two of you have really worked to make this a repeatable practice with binaural beats and optimizing that for people.
We have repeatedly taught people how to use the binaural beats to do, like Scott was saying, to relax your body, to keep alert, but then to expand your own consciousness and to become more aware of what's happening when you're in that expanded state of awareness. We talk about consciousness and being on different levels, multidimensional. I think it's all part of ourself, our conscious self. We're just learning to tune in. And the binaural beats make it much easier to make those connections. When we're looking at bilocation, we tend to think about, am I here or am I there? The spirit world feels very, very far away when we use that kind of language. It's like I have to be in a really deep mystical state to reach those connections with spirit, connections with guides, to go to the black light. While those deep metaphysical states are really fun and meaningful, and the binaural beats certainly help you get there much clearer and much easier, they're not necessary. You can be pretty much driving down the road or having a conversation in your kitchen and experience bilocation. There's the common bilocation that we each have when we're driving, and our hands and our body are driving the car very carefully, and our mind is thinking about, what do I need to get at the grocery store? What am I doing this afternoon? And then we are bilocating. Our consciousness is in two different places. Quite often you see a mother with several children constantly bilocating. She's fixing dinner, monitoring the child over here, having a conversation with someone over there, and trying to figure who's on the phone. So we have these experiences ordinarily through our day of when we are being multitasking, we're learning to do that on a multidimensional level. So we have intuitive flashes that are connections with the multidimensional level. We have a sense of just knowing who's on the phone, or knowing who we need to call, because we have a sense that there's something going on. You have a meaningful dream. That's another way to have that connection that we all have already, with knowing we have a connection. We get messages all the time from the non-physical realms. So think about when you know the answer is yes. When you know that you're on the beat, that yes, I'm in the flow, this feels good. I know that I am on my path, and that the next right thing for me to do is X. You know how that feels really good inside? Yeah, you kind of feel unified. You know that sense of anxiety when you go, no, this is really not what I need to be doing. I want to do it, but I know it's the wrong thing. That no feeling. We have that inside of us, but we don't usually intentionally recognize it. So I want to do just a little exercise here that'll help us identify within ourselves how we do have those connections, and that we can use them on a day-to-day basis. Anything you want to add to this, Scott, before I take them through the exercise?
This is a wonderful way to be able to begin to be in communion with our higher self and our guidance, and to be able to recognize both in a physical and a non-physical way that we have this connection. So go for it, Charlene.
Okay. So we'll start with just getting centered in our bodies. Kind of take a breath. You don't need to get deep, but you do need to get centered and kind of in a neutral mindset. So you kind of take a breath, feel your body, move your feet, get a little grounded. Grateful that you have this ability to connect with your larger self, your inner knowing, your inner wisdom. We're going to do that using your body. Sometimes people think of it as body wisdom, body awareness. Another breath coming into this moment. And kind of make a statement to yourself that you're willing to recognize when you are getting a yes and a no and a maybe. So putting a hand on your heart, a hand on your stomach. I am willing to be aware of how myself responds to a yes. I am a human being. Just notice your body. Notice your body reaction to, hi, my name is George. What is your body reaction to, I love anchovy pizza? What is your body's reaction to, I like cuddling with someone I love and trust? Now, you may have noticed that your body feels different or moves forward towards the truth, ranges towards yes, and pulls back for no. I do not love anchovy pizza. My body kind of rebelled against that one. Did you have a hesitation where you go, I like to cuddle? Well, it really depends. Maybe that's your maybe signal for what is yes, what is no, what is I really need to think about this one some more. So as you get into that neutral state, that quiet mind, open to receiving the information, you're able to use that in the grocery store. Is this arugula good for me? Is this Coca-Cola healthy for my body? And it's interesting. Sometimes your mind will go, oh, not at all. And your body will go, you know, a little bit might be nice. So it's a way to clarify. And you can use it to clarify things you don't know. You know, I have a desire to go on this vacation. Is it this one or that one that's going to be better for me? And to be able to use that inner knowing as a way to help guide you through your daily routine. I believe this works because we are always connected to our spirit self, to our soul. We are learning in this little example to allow ourselves to respond. Now, you use your body to respond because you can relax your body and not think about it and let it be a response beyond your thinking mind. So I encourage you to try that out. Stand in a way that you're comfortable, relaxed, and then ask yourself some questions and see how your body responds, if this is a tool that you can use easily.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Charlene. And let's go back over to you, Scott. And I know it'd be great to sort of build on what that demonstration and just talk a little bit more about what you've seen that really works to expand our intuitive antenna and open to some of these more communications from the higher realms.
I love this work because it is on more than one level. As Charlene was going through anchovy pizza, I was thinking like, ooh, ick. And, and there was this feeling inside of me as well as my body reacting. And so it opened up another method of conversation with our guidance. And as it turns out, Charlene and I have a yes response when we've been pondering something, and there is a big, oh wow, yeah, if I put all those pieces together in this particular order, I get tingles up and down my arms. That for me is not only do I get the body thing, but I get this rush, this tingle that says, yes, God, you are on the right path. Keep pursuing that. So when we go into these states of expanded awareness using binaural beat technology, where we become aware of more than just our five physical senses, that takes and opens up new possibilities for other forms of communication. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a bit, but essentially what we want to do is in this expanded state, you like that? We're going to do this other creating more antennas so that all of a sudden we begin to pick up things in that are more subtle or maybe more complex, and being in these vibratory windows, that helps. And being in a meditative state helps. And being in a state that is purposely open and receptive, like I was when I was bedside with Nolan. I was open and receptive, and all of a sudden, this information that I could never have imagined be true was able to enter in, and I could have an experience with both Mary Fran and Nolan.
Mm. Well, it's really clear what the power of this work and how much it can change your life and open up to a multidimensional self, higher guidance, deep healing. So many blessings can flow from it. So let's talk about how people can participate in the upcoming program with you and really learn the how and make it a lived practice for themselves. So we're really blessed that Scott and Charlene have agreed to teach a brand new program. It's called Journey to Multidimensional Realms with Bilocation. Bring love, support, and guidance from your loved ones back to your physical reality. You can find it laid out in detail at the URL multidimensionalrealms.com. There's no dash in there, just multidimensionalrealms.com. It's a 7-week program. It does not require having a near-death experience in advance. In fact, this is specifically designed for people to benefit from this kind of work, no matter what your experience and background is. So it's there's no prerequisites, and it's really just if you're curious, if you're intrigued, if there are people you want to connect with on the other side, if you want to explore the higher dimensions of consciousness, open to different realms of guidance. There's a lot of different motivations for why you might want to make this exploration. And not least of which is the fact that Scott and Charlene are very relatable, grounded people who have been exploring this more advanced terrain for several decades now and really guiding people into it. So I'd love for you to share in the, first of all, a big picture overview of like the bigger why of this program, why take this journey, and then we can read out the module titles and get a preview of each. And Scott, you want to begin?
Sure. The big preview on this is that what we're going to do is to establish very clear ways to communicate with the non-physical, with the spiritual realm, not only learning how to receive information and the information that we hold in our energy field, but how to construct, how to craft our communication, because we aren't bound by our five physical senses. Once we've laid that down, and we have a master's degree in communicating with the non-physical world, what we're going to do is we're going to go to that place in the white light where we can communicate with those that have passed on, that we love dearly, and or if there are energetic beings there that would like to have communication with you. So, you've heard about that white light at the end of the tunnel. and that indie ears go to. Heck, Harry Potter went to one. And that's where we're going to go, using our tools and techniques, and we're going to go there. And then we're going to wrap up the class by going to that very special state that Charlene alluded to a little earlier. That would be the black light, where we become, have the ability to connect with that source, that loving energy, and learn how to manifest those things that we have created in the non-physical world. How do we bring them back into the physical world so that our lives are improved and we can live with more peace and joy? That's the big arc, Stephen.
That's great. So module 1 is called Awaken Your Senses to Access Multidimensional Communication.
Yes, this is a time of extending your antenna and becoming more aware of the information around you all the time. As human beings, we filter out much of what's going on around us in any given moment, because we've learned how to focus on what we're reading, who we're talking to, and not pay attention to the noise of the traffic or other things going on around us. We relearn how to pay attention to the signals coming in, learning the communication style of our higher selves and of our helpers, and learning to pick up and notice those things. We each have a primary sense, the 5 primary physical senses of seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, tasting. We have one that we use most of the time, and we will give you some suggestions for how to increase your other secondary, if you will, physical senses, so that you have a broader scope. And of course, we're talking about that practical connection between the physical and the non-physical, the spiritual and the physical realms.
Module 2, Unlock the Language of the Non-Physical for Deeper Connection.
This is when I begin to appreciate that the communication between Mary Fran and I was not done in English. It was telepathic, and it was done in a way where I could experience the fullness of the communication, because it was not bounded by words. And so that's what we're going to do in the second module. We're going to expand and develop 5 more senses to receive information. The first one is synesthesia. And this would be like where your physical senses get mixed up. You all have the experience of feeling music that's being played. It engenders a feeling within you. But what if we would add a sense of smell to that, or a sense of taste to that same thing? Now, all of a sudden, the senses are getting mixed, and we have a fuller, more complete way of communicating. Emotion. We're going to learn how to discern what's our emotion and what is emotion that's coming into us. Intuition. Incredibly valuable. This flash of insight where it doesn't seem to have any context. We're going to develop that. Imagination and creativity, which I was giving you a hard time about. That is, I think, comes from this realm, and it helps spark places that we can go and we can visit. And synchronicity, the last one, it's where the universe starts talking to us in physical ways. Like if I had an unexpected gift in an unexpected time. Every time I see a dime on the parking lot, I think of my grandpa Brett. That was a connection for some odd reason that we had developed over the years, and it continues. So every time I see more and more dimes, I know that he's talking to me. We're going to add 5 more senses.
Module 3, Empower and Protect your PEF, or personal energy field, to communicate with guides and other non-physical beings.
We each have a physical and non-physical energy system around us. Science is learning how to measure it to an extent. We are going to learn how to empower, to strengthen, to play with and interact with our energy field, and then to use that to our benefit, both in the physical world, interacting with others in the physical realms. And in the non-physical world, this is the way we communicate and connect our energy to their energy. So by becoming more aware of and interactive with intentionally with our own personal energy field, we are better able to communicate and connect across the board.
Module 4, craft heartfelt messages for stronger relationships using multidimensional communication skills.
So this is where we reverse it. This is where we say, now what we're going to do is we want to create a message that can be interpreted by those in the non-physical, because they don't use English that much. So we're going to craft that information for them. And we're going to use the 10 modes of perception that we learned in Module 1 and Module 2. We're going to mix it with our personal energy field, and we're going to communicate now in a fuller, more comprehensive way with the non-physical universe, so they understand, and when they respond back to us, it's clearer what is being communicated.
Module 5, elevate your vibration to board the metaphysical tour bus and connect with departed loved ones.
We'll be using the binaural beats to help raise our vibrational field, but since we have been interacting with our personal energy field, we are better equipped to be able to identify the energy and follow along as the tour bus, we just follow along, carries us into the white light. And we use our skills that we've been practicing up until that point to communicate, to send messages to those we love, and to receive information as we are being carried along by the guidance in the exercise.
Module 6, enjoy the company of physical and non-physical friends at the Bridge Cafe.
For over 50 years, those of us that have been doing this work have created this little space in the white light. And it's a place of communion. It's a place where we gather. And it's a place where we can easily exchange ideas and conversations because we have intended it. So many people have intended it. So the Bridge Cafe is where we do that. And it exists outside of time and space. So whenever you go there, you look under the yellow umbrella, and there I am, because I'm always there. I'm outside of time, and we can have a conversation, and you can have a conversation with anybody that you would like to. Just arrange a time, arrange a place, and you can meet at the Bridge Cafe and carry on a conversation like you would really desire to.
And finally, Module 7, consistently manifest your intentions using the power of bilocation and black light.
Now, this is touching into another of the lights. We use the white light for modules 5 and 6. And this is the black light of manifestation of all potential, of being able to not only see how your pattern, whatever you're trying to create, would impact you in the physical world, but to get a different perspective, to see how it would impact you, everyone around you, and the different aspects of your life, the different roles that you play. This enhances your creativity so that you're able to bring it back and create in the physical realms what it is your heart desires. So it brings your intention and your heart desire together to be able to bilocate, to manifest, so that you manifest there and here who you are and what you want in your life.
Well,
It's a taste of the lights here. We'll do that more in other classes, but this is a remarkable experience in the light.
Well, it's clear this is going to cover some really amazing and far out and illuminating terrain, and also you're going to really help ground it in daily life in a really beautiful way. So again, the whole program is laid out in detail at multidimensionalrealms.com, multidimensionalrealms.com. and I'll share a little bit more about it. So not only are you going to get the 7 90-minute live sessions with Scott and Charlene, you're also going to have time to ask your questions directly, engage in interactive exercises and journeys and guided processes. You also get recordings of every session, both video and audio, so you can go back and listen again, do the journey, do the processes again, do the synchronizations. And so you'll also get word-for-word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight, as well as weekly exercises for home and different explorations you can do on your own. There's a Facebook community group to support you and deepen your experience, as well as small group time to connect with other participants. And on the page, you'll also see there's a number of extra bonuses that have been added very generously to enhance this journey for you. There's a video dialogue with Scott, Charlene, and Mark Anthony called the Afterlife Frequencies. There's also a video dialogue with Scott, Charlene, and Minister Pete Panagore called What Dying on an Ice Wall Taught Me About Living. I understand that's a particularly significant near-death experience. And Scott, you want to share a little bit about that bonus?
Pete Panagore tells a rather remarkable story about climbing up an ice wall and being stranded there just at the sunset when you should not be at the top. You should be coming down. And he dies on that ice wall and has a remarkable, really profound near-death experience that when you hear it, it's really going to touch you and understand how these experiences of expanded awareness that we go to can really change your life. It changed his profoundly, and it resonates quite directly with the material that we're going to be teaching.
And there's also another one, which is your special bonus for folks who sign up right away. This is a video dialogue with Scott and Perdita Finn, another very cool Shift faculty member. It's called You Are Always Connected. And if you sign up today by midnight, you're going to get that special dialogue on You Are Always Connected. And Scott, you want to share a little bit more about that one?
I love this interview. Charlene and I did it, and at the end, we looked at each other and went, oh my gosh, there's somebody that is on exactly the same page that we are, but has an entirely different lens from which to look at the material. So I find it really helpful and illuminating, actually, to be able to say, you know, we look at it this way, she looks at it this way, and look how much commonality we have. So we loved our conversation with her.
It's an awesome bonus, and I know that people get a lot of value from that. So again, you can find all the details at the URL multidimensionalrealms.com. So we've kept the investment for this program very accessible. It's just 3 payments of $128, or you can save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. So the course is going to start on May 8th and run Wednesdays at 10:30 Pacific, 1:30 Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts, and the community as well. And you'll also get on that page a number of extra testimonials about people who've previously taken programs with Scott and Charlene, who just rave about how to increase the quality of their life and jump their awareness. Growth, insight, and knowledge surpasses any education of the societal norms of present. Really great testimonials of the benefit in people's lives. So I highly encourage you to go through the page, multidimensionalrealms.com, tune in with what you've heard today and what you could open when you open to these realms. And this is a really great training that's grounded in the latest science and practice, and can really open up a whole multidimensional new reality for your life and well-being. So again, you can find all the details at multidimensionalrealms.com. So Scott and Charlene, we were just at the close of our hour. Really a fascinating adventure with you this last hour. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your experiences, and anything that's on your heart you still want to share with folks who are considering diving into the full program with you.
When we decided to come here into this physical world, we came at this set of parameters about our physical senses, and now I find this profound, that we are in a very interesting part of our human history where all of a sudden we are beginning to open up, not only as a species and a culture and as individuals, to this really rather profound states that exist, that near-death experiencers have told us about, shared death experiencers have told us about. it's time and it's accessible. And this work is really profound. And I know you'll find it rewarding. And frankly, it's just more fun than one person should have.
It is really fun because that playful attitude allows you to do things you never thought you could. If you have ever wondered if you could have some of the same experiences that we talked about today, if you could connect with people who have passed along, or if you could have had other experiences that the near-death experiencers talk about, and you go, gosh, I wish I could do some of those things, you can. We each have that ability. We just have to remember how to pay attention, how to listen, how to see, and build those skills. This class will help you open your heart and to be more than you thought you could be.
Well, it's really clear your passion for this work and the remarkable things it can open up. And I just know people are in for a great adventure if they choose to go forward with you. And again, the program is called Journey to Multidimensional Realms with Bilocation. Bring love, support, and guidance from your loved ones back to your physical reality. And you can find all the details at multidimensionalrealms.com.